You're not forgetting because you're bad at learning. You're forgetting because your brain has been taught how to throw things away. Every single time you study something and forget it, it's not just knowledge disappearing. It's hours of your life you will never get back. Time you spent believing you were building something, only to wake up and find it gone. 1 second pause. If you've ever felt that way, you're not alone. There are thousands of people watching this right now who are trying to relearn how to work with their brain instead of against it. And if you care about videos that help you learn better, live lighter, and work smarter, hit that like button or subscribe so you don't have to figure this out by yourself. You don't have to keep losing the battle with your own mind. Here's what really happens. You study all night. You pour everything you have into those notes, those flashcards, those practice problems. You go to bed exhausted, convinced you finally got it. Then morning comes, and it's gone. Not all of it, but enough that you panic, enough that you think something's wrong with you. But here's the truth most people miss. Your brain isn't lazy. Your brain isn't broken. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's filtering out what it thinks doesn't matter. The problem isn't you. The problem is that you never taught your brain that this information matters. So it treats your late-night cramming session the same way it treats a random conversation you overheard at a coffee shop. Interesting for a moment, then gone forever. But if that's true, then why can Japanese students remember over 2,000 kanji characters for their entire lives? Most of them aren't geniuses. Most of them don't have photographic memories. So what's different? They're not studying harder. They're studying in rhythm with what their brain actually needs. Think of your brain like soil. Every time you learn something, you're planting a seed. But if you just throw seeds onto dry ground and walk away, nothing grows. The information doesn't stick because the conditions aren't right. Japanese students understand something most education systems ignore. Memory isn't about effort, it's about timing. Research on learning retention shows that spacing and rhythm matter more than total hours spent studying. It's about creating the right environment before you even start. And that's where most of us get it completely wrong. Let me introduce you to Kenji. He's 16 years old. He's not at the top of his class. He's not heading to Tokyo University. He's just average. But Kenji can recall over 1,800 kanji characters without hesitation, plus their meanings, their pronunciations, and how to use them in sentences. Ask any American student to remember 1,800 of anything and watch what happens. So, what does Kenji's morning look like? Because that's where the difference actually begins. Kenji doesn't wake up and immediately grab his phone. He doesn't dive straight into review mode or panic about what's due today. The first thing he does is open his curtains and let natural sunlight hit his eyes. Not bright artificial light, not a screen. Sunlight, even for just 5 minutes. This isn't some mystical wellness routine. It's biology. Morning light triggers cortisol production in a healthy way, signaling to his brain that it's time to be alert and ready to encode new information. Then he moves. Nothing intense. Some stretching, a walk around the block. Light movement that increases blood flow to the brain without stressing the body. And here's the part that changes everything. Before Kenji learns anything new, he recalls what he studied yesterday. Not by rereading his notes, not by looking at his textbook. He closes his eyes and tries to remember. He asks his brain to bring it back on its own. Neuroscientists call this active recall, and studies show it's one of the most powerful learning techniques ever measured. This isn't about cramming more information in. It's about waking up what's already there. Most people start their day by adding more weight to an already overloaded system. But Kenji starts his day by activating what he planted the day before. He's not pushing, he's nurturing, and that makes all the difference. Before Kenji even opens a book, there's a ritual. It sounds simple, almost too simple to matter, but that's the point. He makes tea, not coffee, not an energy drink, tea. He arranges his study space, making sure everything he needs is within reach. He takes 3 deep breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth. These aren't productivity hacks. These are signals. Signals that tell his brain what comes next matters. Your brain doesn't remember everything. It remembers what you treat as important. If you study while distracted, scrolling between paragraphs, notifications pinging in the background, your brain registers it as background noise. But if you create a small ritual before you start, your brain shifts gears. It knows something significant is about to happen, and it prepares to hold on to it. This is why cramming in bed, half asleep, studying during commercial breaks doesn't work. Not because you're not trying, but because your brain never got the message that this moment mattered. Now let's talk about the most counterintuitive part. And this is where most people realize they've been doing it backwards their entire lives. Imagine 2 students preparing for the same exam. The first one, let's call her Sarah, studies for 6 hours straight. No breaks. Full focus, highlighter in one hand, coffee in the other, completely drained by the end. The next day, she remembers almost nothing. She feels betrayed by her own brain. The second student, let's call him Marcus, studies for 40 minutes, takes a 10-minute break, then repeats. He studies for a total of 3 hours, less than half of Sarah's time. He feels focused, but not exhausted. And a week later, Marcus remembers almost everything, while Sarah is back at square one. It's not because Marcus is smarter. It's because his brain wasn't in survival mode. When you push too hard for too long, your brain stops encoding. It stops transferring information from short-term memory to long-term storage. It's too busy managing stress hormones, trying to keep you functional, trying to prevent burnout. But when you work in waves, when you respect your brain's natural ultradian rhythms, it has time to process, time to consolidate, time to actually save what you just learned. The 40-10 pattern isn't arbitrary. It mirrors how your brain naturally cycles through high focus and low focus periods throughout the day. So what does Kenji's afternoon study session actually look like when you understand rhythm? 40 minutes of focused work, then 10 minutes of real rest. Not scrolling through social media, not checking messages. Rest that lets his brain integrate what it just absorbed. During those 40 minutes, Kenji isn't passively reading. He's actively recalling. He covers up his notes and tries to explain the concept out loud as if he's teaching someone else. Then he checks. Then he corrects. Then he tries again. This method, called retrieval practice, has been shown to improve long-term retention by up to 50% compared to passive review. And here's where spaced repetition comes in. The technique that makes Japanese students seem like they have supernatural memory. Kenji doesn't just review something once and assume it's locked in. He reviews the same material at specific intervals. First, after 10 minutes. Then, after 1 day. Then, after 3 days. Then, after a week. Each time he successfully recalls it, the memory gets stronger. The neural pathway gets deeper. Think of it like carving a path through a forest. The first time, you're hacking through thick brush. It's hard. It's slow. But if you walk that same path a few more times, spaced out over days, eventually it becomes a clear trail. A trail your brain can follow effortlessly whenever it needs to. Memory isn't magic. It's repetition with space in between. That space is where the real learning happens. That space is where your brain does the invisible work of making temporary knowledge permanent. But rhythm isn't just about study intervals. It's also about what your body needs. And this is something American education almost completely ignores. Kenji doesn't ignore hunger. He doesn't push through fatigue like it's a badge of honor. Around 3 in the afternoon, he eats something small, a piece of fruit, some nuts, maybe a rice ball, enough to stabilize blood sugar without making him sluggish. Then he takes 60 seconds to breathe deeply. 5 breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. That's it. Just enough to reset his nervous system, to bring his mind back to center. Here's the thing most people don't want to hear because it sounds too simple. Willpower cannot save you when your biology is working against you. If you're exhausted, dehydrated, and running on stress hormones and caffeine crashes, no amount of discipline will make your brain remember. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for focus and memory encoding, literally shuts down when you're in chronic stress mode. But if you take care of the body, the brain follows. These aren't distractions. They're maintenance. And maintenance is what separates people who remember from people who forget. You wouldn't drive a car for 6 hours without checking the fuel. Why do you expect your brain to perform without the same basic care? As the day winds down, there's one more critical step that most students skip, and it costs them everything. Around 9 or 10 at night, before Kenji even thinks about going to bed, he spends 10 minutes reviewing. Not everything he studied that day, just the key concepts, the main ideas, the things that matter most. He doesn't reread word for word. He quizzes himself. He tries to pull it from memory one last time, and then he lets it go. This is the save button. If you study hard all day but never hit save, your brain discards most of it while you sleep. It assumes it was just noise, just sensory input that didn't warrant long-term storage. But if you review right before sleep, you're telling your brain in the clearest possible terms, this matters. Keep this. I'm going to need this again. Research on memory consolidation shows that the last thing you review before sleep has a significantly higher chance of being transferred to long-term memory. It's the difference between leaving a document open and hoping it autosaves versus manually saving it yourself. One is risky, the other is certain. So Kenji reviews for 10 minutes. He doesn't stress. He doesn't cram. He just gently reminds his brain what mattered today. Sleep is not downtime. Sleep is not wasted hours. Sleep is when your brain finishes the work you started during the day. While Kenji is unconscious, while his body is still, his brain is extraordinarily active. It's replaying what he learned, strengthening the synaptic connections, moving information from the hippocampus, where temporary memories live, to the neocortex, where permanent memories are stored. This process is called memory consolidation, and it only happens during deep sleep. This is why students who pull all-nighters before exams remember almost nothing a week later. They never gave their brain the time to process. They never allowed the consolidation to happen. So the information just fades like a dream. Kenji prioritizes sleep the same way he prioritizes study time. 7 to 8 hours. Deep, uninterrupted sleep. Dark room. No screens an hour before bed because blue light suppresses melatonin and delays the onset of deep sleep. No stimulation that keeps the brain in high alert mode. You don't learn while you sleep, but you solidify everything you learned while awake. And if you skip sleep, you might as well skip the studying too, because none of it is sticking. There's a philosophy behind all of this that goes deeper than study techniques. It's called Kaizen, and it's woven into Japanese culture at every level. Kaizen means continuous improvement through small, deliberate actions. Not giant leaps, not dramatic overnight transformations. Just one small thing done consistently, compounding over time. Kenji doesn't try to memorize 100 kanji in one day. He learns 5 every single day. 5 new characters. 5 reviews of yesterday's characters. 5 reviews of last week's characters. It doesn't feel impressive. It doesn't feel like progress when you're in the middle of it. But 5 characters a day for a year is over 1,800 characters. That's fluency. That's mastery. And it happened so quietly, you barely noticed. And there's another concept that matters just as much. The space between things. The pause. The breath. The moment of nothing that makes the next moment possible. Western culture, especially American culture, celebrates more. More effort, more hours, more intensity, more hustle. But Japanese learning culture celebrates rhythm and rest. Progress doesn't have to be loud. In fact, the most lasting progress is quiet. It's the student who reviews 10 minutes every night instead of cramming the night before the exam. It's the person who takes breaks instead of burning out by midterms. It's the learner who respects the space between efforts, because that's where the growth actually happens. Is the silence between notes that makes music beautiful, and it's the rest between study sessions that makes learning possible. So here's what I need you to understand, and this is the part that changes everything if you really hear it. It was never about you being bad at learning. It was never about needing to study more hours, or having better focus, or being smarter. The system taught you wrong. It taught you that suffering equals progress, that exhaustion means you're working hard enough, that if you're not struggling, you're not learning. But your brain doesn't respond to suffering. It shuts down under suffering. Your brain responds to rhythm. It responds to consistency. It responds to being treated like the biological organism it is, not a machine you can just override with willpower and caffeine. What you need isn't more motivation. Motivation fades. What you need is a daily rhythm that aligns with how human memory actually works. And once you have that, everything changes. Not overnight, but steadily, quietly, permanently. Tonight, you don't have to fix everything. You don't have to become a completely different person. You just have to choose one thing. One small action that serves your brain instead of fighting it. Go to bed 20 minutes earlier than you did last night. Review just one flashcard, one concept, one idea before you turn off the light. Turn off your screen 30 minutes earlier than usual and let your brain start winding down naturally. That's it. You don't need to transform your entire life. You just need to end today differently than you ended yesterday. Because that's how rhythms start. Not with big dramatic decisions that you can't sustain, but with one small action that you repeat tomorrow and the day after until it becomes automatic, until it becomes part of who you are. Kenji didn't start by memorizing 2,000 characters. He started by showing up for 5, by planting one seed, by respecting his brain's need for rest and repetition. And over time, that small daily action became a skill he'll carry for the rest of his life. You can do the same. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready or motivated or inspired. Tonight, right now. Just one thing. That's all it takes to start building a rhythm your brain will actually remember. Your brain isn't the problem. The rhythm is. And rhythm is something you can change, starting with how you end today.